Today I'll be working with Henry and Augusta Duelberg Salvias. These are terrific large perennials, and if you have them in your garden but you're wondering how they should be pruned, stick around and I'll show you just how to keep them blooming and beautiful. Also, I'll have a bonus for you later in the video, so be sure and stick around for that. Hi, I'm Kara, and this is Home and Garden DIY, where you'll get the information you need to get started on the projects that you want to work on. Before I even start showing you the video of the pruning of this plant, I need to clear up something just so that I've caused you no confusion with regard to what plant this is. I misspeak in the video and say that these are sage plants, and while sage is a subcategory of the family of plants that salvias belong to, the Henry and Augusta Duelbergs are not sages. It is Henry and Augusta Duelberg Salvia. So please be aware of that going in. And anytime you hear me say that these are sages, they are actually salvias. And just to give you a little more information, sage and salvia are members of the mint family. And so it's true that they are very closely related because they're in the same family. But again, these plants, Henry and Augusta Duelberg, are salvias, not sages. So please keep that in mind as you watch the rest of the video. So let me show you how to prune it. Okay, here I am with an Augusta Duelberg sage. The Henry is the blue. There's actually two here together. Blue is Henry and white is Augusta. And Augusta, well, Henry needs to be cut back too. But Augusta is just, you can see it's lying down here. There's places right there along these branches that I'm following with the camera where the stems are bare there. That needs to be cut back right through there, so it's not doing that. And see, what we've got is in here at the center, we've got nice new growth right here because this plant has been pruned back a couple of times, but only in a modest way. And then it got a good amount of rain and it's now getting some really nice sun, and that's why it's all in bloom here. But we can make it even prettier by doing the pruning that I'm getting ready to do right now. So what I'm going to do is start here on these edges where I've got bare stems, but I want you to notice before I cut, I don't have just bare stems, which is what I just said. And this is why it's really important that you get out in your garden and that you really have a look at your plants, because I can cut that off, but now when I look at this, that's going to burst into bloom because I removed this. And instead of the plant just continuing to get longer out here and taller and leggier and more bare here, now I'm going to get foliage here. So even though I don't necessarily see growth right here, I'm still going to go ahead and I'm going to cut that off right there because I do see growth there. And I can guarantee you that when we come back to this plant the next time, we are going to find new growth on this because we already see it here. Let me show you. This is the center of the plant. So what I'm going to do is kind of round this plant off generally around that center. We don't want our plants leaning off to one side, and we certainly don't want them leaning on neighboring plants. So let's fix that. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this back. This is pretty well dead, so I'm just going to cut that off. And let me show you how I know that. If you'll come in closer, honey. I didn't do it before I cut it, but see, that just snaps right off. That's completely dead. I could tell by looking at it because it's more brown gray than it is green like this. So, you know, if it's dead, it's dead. Go ahead and cut it off. We're going to do the same thing out here. Just going to cut these off. Now, if you've never grown the Duelberg sages before, Henry and Augusta, you may not know how readily they drop their seeds and reseed. So let me show you what has happened here. Not only do we have the plant leaning out here, we've got a brand new plant here. So we're just going to leave that right where it is, and we're going to let that keep growing. But when you're working with these Duelberg sages and you're doing your pruning, be sure and check for things like that, because you can, if the homeowner wanted to, she could dig this up and plant that someplace else, or put it over here so that it would fill in even more in this area with her Augusta Duelberg sages. So we'll just keep going around this plant. What we're doing is, there's the center. We want to just kind of round this off. It's going to force all of this new growth that's coming out here already to get taller and put on more blooms. So here's another situation, just like we had a minute ago. I know I've got growth up here, and you're not going to be able to see it, I don't think, but clear down in here, there is leaves growing out of this stalk. So I'm going to go ahead and just cut that down into there so that it's kind of hidden by this new growth, but it can still grow foliage on that branch that I left remaining. And we'll just continue on around, cut that off, and yep, I have another new plant down here, see? Right there, we've got a couple of new plants that are coming on. Here's another one right here, and what I'm going to do to help that one is I'm going to just cut off these top parts of it. And actually, let me get this other off of it. Okay, we've got a volunteer right here. Oh no, that's our blue. Okay, yeah, here's our volunteer. So I'm going to cut those down. And by cutting those down, I'm going to encourage them to bush out instead of just continuing, bush out instead of just continuing to lean out toward the light to get light and be able to grow. Okay, so we'll just finish this off real quick with getting rid of that. We're going to cut that off. Cut these away. Cut all of that back. And we'll snip this one off just right above that new little growth that we see right there. And then last but not least, we're going to go through and just kind of get rid of this ugly stuff that's sticking up at the top, so that when we go away from our pruned plant, that what we see still is blooms. Pruning's all done. Let's take a look. We've revealed a volunteer here and a couple of volunteers right here, and we've reduced the size of the plant overall so that now it is even around the center of the plant. And what we've done is we've also caused here in the center these places where there already is new growth. All of these places, and here where I showed you where we have new growth, and right there, and we've got a new bud there coming on. This is going to force this plant now to put its energy into making this foliage larger, making these bloom spikes taller and prettier, and the places where there's an additional bloom getting ready to come out, like right there, those are going to come on even faster. And we've just kind of given our plant a jolt of energy, because now it has less plant that it's got to put its energy into. And so that's really going to force it to bloom, and it's going to force it to put on more foliage. Okay, and I'm still right here next to the Augusta Duelberg that I just cut back. And here's our Henry Duelberg that you can see right here at the top of the frame has, again, some volunteer Augusta in there. So Henry and Augusta are very much in love and mingling here in the garden. You can see another spot there where we've got some Augusta there in the center. So all I'm going to do with this particular clump of Henry is just cut it back where it's leaning out here to the sun, and instead of encouraging it to do that by not pruning it, we're going to get it to grow out here. This is actually the base of this clump of plants. There were 3 plants that were put here together when it was initially planted in this bed. We're going to get it to grow back out and fill in this side. So I'm just going to grab the blooms. And again, folks, I know it is very hard to make yourself come out to the garden when you walk up to something that's pretty and blooming like this and make yourself cut blooms away. But I'm telling you, you must do it. So even here where I've got blooms, but look what I've done. I cut that bloom away that was long, but here's a bloom ready to come out, and there is a bloom ready to come out. And now, because I cut that longer one away, these are going to come on even more and quicker. And so I'm not cutting all the blooms away. I'm cutting away some older stalks in conjunction with my pruning, so that all of these little blooms that are ready to come out on the plant now are getting more light, and they're going to start popping out. And we're reshaping the plant, we're getting it some more light, instead of letting it continue to just get leggier and lean further toward the sun. So if we come around this side now, we need to do the same thing over here. We've got to prune back quite a bit. Back this little volunteer Augusta, and see, now we've got a Gerbera daisy here that's going to get some light instead of being hidden underneath the Augustas. Cut this back along here some, cut that back some, cut a few of these old blooms off. We'll cut that sticking off at the end, cut a couple of these old blooms off. And actually, I'm going to cut a little more of that off too, because it's really kind of leaning on itself there. So, same thing here. Now, we've evened up our plant quite a bit. We've got this area right here that was leaning over. Now it's standing up straight. Let me show you that from the side. So now we've got it standing up straight instead of leaning over. And we've shaped it back here We've opened the plant up so that we're getting light down inside here now. We've opened up our Gerbera daisy that wasn't getting any sun, and even though there's only a few at the moment, we do still have blooms on this plant. And as I showed you, we have lots of new little blooms that are ready to come out. So we will see those when we come back the next time. And we'll also see a whole lot more foliage on this plant, as well as a nicer shape to it where it's not leaning off to one side. And these will both be nice bushy perennials instead of being kind of overgrown and leggy and leaning on one another. Okay, so to wrap up this video, I wanted to come back and show you what we've got here with our Augusta Duelberg. And you can see she has done exactly what I said, put on far more blooms up on the top. It's bushier in here. Here's the places that I showed you last time that I told you would put on growth, and they have. We're not getting quite as much sun and quite as much warm weather as is normal for this time of year, so it hasn't put on quite as much growth as I might have expected at this point in the year, but coming along beautifully. And we've got nice blooms on it. It's bushier. And then let's check on Henry. You can see that we've got blooms on him as well. Got a bee there enjoying those blooms this morning. And you'll see that we're getting some light down inside this perennial. Got nice blooms coming on here. Bloom stalks coming on there as well, just really doing prettily. And we got some more growth from our Gerbera daisy because we've uncovered that. Also, let's follow up on these volunteer Augustas that we had. Those have bushed out a decent amount, and this one is even blooming. So all is going well here, and I will see you in the next video. Pruning of Henry and Augusta Duelberg Salvias is all complete, and now it's time for the bonus I promised you. I'm going to finish this video off with pictures of beautiful flowers and some nice music. What could be better? See you next time.